So it's recording now. So I'd like to go ahead and call to order the June 15th meeting of the Tuscaloosa Public Library Board of Trustees. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. So if I could get a motion for that.
I so move.
Got a motion, a second?
Second.
Got a second by Pat. All right, so all in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the approval of the agenda is passed. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the May 18th minutes. If you have a second to look over those. Is there a motion to approve those?
I so move. This is Olympia.
Second.
Olympia makes the motion. Terry seconds it. All in favor of the approval of the May 18th minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is approved. The next item on the agenda is the financial report. Since we do not currently have a treasurer, I'll go through it real quickly, and then in the meeting we're going to speak more about budgets, so I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here. But just looking through the cash report there, looks like there's $2,452,778 in the account. And then at the bottom of there, the total undesignated cash is $1,447,335. Then on the balance sheet, it lists total assets of $4,331,753.85. And then the total liabilities and equity is the exact same figure. The P&L statements there, there's a big difference between the May and the budgeted there. I think that's partly as a result of the closures and the lack of expenses there, so there's not a whole lot to talk about. Looking at the P&L from 20 to 2019, again, pretty good difference there, I think, again, because of the pandemic. And then also the last one there, if we're looking at the Raymond James, looks like we've recovered a little bit of the losses. It's up to $562,422.56. So I'll stop there and ask if there are any questions. And again, I believe we'll talk in more detail about budgets and next year's budgets in light of some of the cuts that the library may be facing.
Rick, the P&Ls do not show any contributions from any of the government entities. Do we just not get that, or what's the deal with that?
We've gotten the monthlies that from like the city of Tuscaloosa, and the state aid is quarterly. And I don't know if we've received the county yet. I hadn't seen a note on it, but we're not missing anything. So if it's not here, it should be coming. They just didn't have it at the time they prepared the report.
I'm sorry, what was that last statement?
I'm saying they just didn't have the updated amount at the time they prepared the report.
Any other questions or comments on the financials? All right, I'd like to ask that those be filed for audit. The next item on the agenda is a departmental report from Haley Bryant. So I'll turn it over to Haley.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me today. I am the Youth Services Manager. So late last night, I sent you all, hopefully you got it maybe this morning, but I created a little bit of something for you to read about what we were doing while we were closed and what we are currently doing now with the craziness that is summer reading. So just to kind of go over it. So if you can see on the document, I started off with TPL at home, and that the stats that you're going to see is going to be below just from the 15th until the 15th of May, but we did this from probably the last week of March until June 1st, and then the next day we came back to work. But prior to creating the content calendar in April, we were posting a lot of resources because I was talking to a lot of the librarians and some teachers trying to see what we could do for parents who were then trying to figure out how to teach their children at home. So I can only imagine with some of the parents that had multiple kids in multiple age groups. So we were just trying to do what we could to help them because a lot of parents still were also struggling with trying to go to work and figure out what they could do. So prior to the 15th of April, we were posting resources because a lot of different services were offering their content for free. So it's just a lot of helpful stuff, and we got a lot of really great feedback from that. But this content, as you can see, we posted something Monday through Friday, and you can see the days. We put it in different days from preschool adults to middle grade to tweens, and then on Friday we posted book reviews for everyone, trying to give them something new to read while they were at home. But we wanted to not only include some things, some learning resources, but we wanted to shine light on a lot of the great things that TPL does offer. And we also did a lot of fun crafts for people to do at home. One of the ones I did, which I learned that I'm not as crafty as I thought, I tried to do a bird feeder and ended up almost cutting my finger off, but we're good. I learned things different ways, different struggles. But we had a lot of fun with this, and it helped us to figure out what our community wanted to see from us. But I think you might have received this last time, the stats. This just goes over the number of views that we had on our different social media accounts, as well as the reach. And like I said, this goes from April 15th to May 15th. So we don't have the 16th through June the 1st, all those stats together quite yet. But I was very excited to see all this just because I don't get to see the back number often. I usually have to ask just because I'm still learning, but it's very exciting to see all the people that we've reached. So as you can see, we also, I don't know, I hope you guys got to tune in. We were able to participate in a radio story time. So one of the big things that we like to discuss is how can we reach people who don't have internet? Because there are a lot of people in our community that don't have access to internet. While we were closed, we became aware of how important these services are to our services are to the community, and how many were suffering because they didn't have access to them directly with our building being closed. Well, while we realize that a lot of the households don't have computers or internet access, they do have radios of some sort. So we were really thrilled when we were able to collaborate and reach out to the radios and to the households with the radio story times. We started off just with 98.1 TXT. They did it every night at 7 p.m.-ish. Usually caught a couple country songs, and then the radio story time started. But then the 92.1 and the WJRD also included. So on the Saturdays and Sundays, we were able to participate and have even more story times on the weekends for the community. It was wonderful. I got to do a couple of them, and it was really fun. And we got a lot of positive feedback from that as well. So they went so well that they actually were extended until the end of May. So lots of fun story times there. So for summer reading, so we don't have any. We had one performer, Tommy Johns, last week, who's been really fantastic, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago. What is time? Anyways, 2 weeks ago, and he's been really fantastic. He's given us a lot of great videos that we can share throughout the summer. So he's been really understanding of what we're all going through right now. But our summer reading program is completely virtual this summer, including registration. So all the content that we are creating, it's being published on our Instagram page. And we have a calendar that we've shared on our main TPL page. So these programs are shared weekly, and they're going to continue until the end of July. So as you can see, on Monday, most days we have at least 3-ish programs that we offer throughout the day, including story times and some fun challenges and crafts. And then we like to do some biweekly book check-ins. And so we can also advertise some of the new materials we've got going on. And then on Thursday, we have a bilingual story time, which has been really fun. I'm catching on and learning a little bit of Spanish with Miss Catherine, so that's been really exciting for me as well. And then some book reviews, and then Saturdays we have a yoga story time, and then on Sunday we just have a fun scavenger hunt. This last week we did something that was indoors, even though it was a beautiful day. It was a great day to kind of look around, fun things that we can do inside as well. But if you scroll down, and this is just from last week, we had a total of 13 programs and over 600 views. And these numbers are still increasing daily. So it's reached approximately 1,300 people and had over 2,000 impressions. So very exciting stuff, because if we think about it, just with our story times, we would average around 60 to 80 people in our story castle. And we're hitting those numbers even online and growing every day. So that's exciting for us to see. So right now with registration, we are, like I said, it's completely virtual. And we still have a couple of groups who are trying to work with us to get registered. A lot of the groups are still figuring out what returning for them is going to look like. But the registration began May 4th and was only available through the website. But now once we've opened, we're able to get people registered in the children's department. So right now, as of last night, we had 437 people, and that number has increased significantly since we've opened in June. So it's going up. Of course, that's not the number that we typically have at this point, but for what we have going on right now, this is wonderful. And we've set a goal at least 1,500 people, and I have full confidence that we'll be able to hit that number. So if any of you haven't registered for the summer reading program, it's a great time to do that as well. So finally, there's some upcoming projects that we've got going on this week. Actually, we have Schoolyard Roots doing a virtual cooking program tomorrow. Really excited about this. They actually just dropped off the food. So they have provided the food for the parents. They get to come and pick up the bags of food. And then they're going to do it via Zoom, where the kids and the parents can actually cook with them. So it's going to be a really fun time. And then on June the 23rd, we're going to have a popsicle drive up where parents can come up, get a popsicle with their kids, and then we'll sign them up for the summer reading program. I think that's going to be a fun time as well. And I think a handful of you all were able to go last year to Bama Bug Fest. We are still going to have that this year. It's just going to be different. It's going to be completely virtual. We are helping plan it. There's going to be the entire month of July. But it's going to be through UA. They're going to have all the programs, but we're going to participate with programming, doing a few story times, some fun crafts. But like I said, they've got it extended throughout the entire month of July. So it's going to be really fun. I'm just glad that they were able to adapt and put that online, because it's a really fun program. So that is my very brief, but I guess long-winded report that I wanted to share with you all, and give you an opportunity, if you have any questions about some of the things that we've been doing or are doing now, please ask away. Thank you all.
Thank you, Haley. That sounds fantastic, and a lot of exciting things going on. Does anybody have any questions or comments for her?
This is Vince. I do have a comment. Just let you guys know, if you missed the story times, I'm working with Saquon now to have those archived, and they are available at our TPL website. So if you missed it, you can go back and listen, and we can archive them up to 8 months based on copyright. So there's time to go back and listen to those stories.
Who did you say is doing the cooking demonstration?
It's going to be with Schoolyard Roots.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I missed that part. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else for Haley?
Thank you, Haley.
Good job, Haley.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Fantastic. Yes. All right. The next item on the agenda is the executive director's report. I'll turn it over to you, Rick.
Okay. Just for y'all's information, on Tuesday, June 2nd is when we reopened the main branch. And as before the meeting, I was talking with a couple of you. Initially, we were limiting the number of patrons who could come into the building to 20 at a time. But within the first 2 hours, we realized that we could accommodate more than that. So we raised that number to 30 at a time. We are currently providing just circulation services. We did add back the photocopier after the first week. And we're trying to prioritize figuring out a way to provide some of the computer lab access in the near future, but there's still some wrinkles to iron out of the protocols for that. We are open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 4. And if we have patrons who don't feel comfortable coming into the building, we do have a drive-up service for curbside pickup that's available. Patrons have to either call or go through the website, generally a day ahead, put in their request, and then the staff will pull those items and then call the patron to schedule a pickup time. And we're doing the pickup off the back of the building through the double doors that Bookmobile normally uses. That way they don't have to interact with the line in the front of the building for people wanting to come in. I've included the patron count for each day that we've been open, and today they gave me the update for Friday and Saturday, which I didn't have at the time I sent the packet. So on Friday the 12th, we had 317 patrons come in and 649 checkouts. And then Saturday the 13th, 257 patrons with a checkout of 585. That brings the totals since we've opened to 3,237 patrons with 8,498 checkouts. In general, we've been averaging around 300 patrons a day and about 800 checkouts, but that ebbs and flows a little bit. Haley talked about our summer reading program.
Hey, Rick,
Yeah.
why are we closing at 4?
The hours that I can be open with the staff I have right now limit us to that 6 hours or 2. And where that time bracket falls, we can adjust. So we could be open later, but to be open a later hour, we'd have to do the opening earlier or later as well. And we're considering shifting that maybe from 12 to 6. But at this point, we haven't seen a high demand for it to shift from what we've started with. I was hoping or expecting to see a bigger bump in the door count on Saturday from people that are having to work till 5 o'clock and couldn't get in during the week. But so far, the demand just hasn't matched what we were expecting. But we are fluid in terms of what hours we have. It's just I don't have the staff to extend the hours, but I can shift them.
So explain why we don't have the staff. Is it because we can't have more people there for social distancing or what?
That's part of it. Some of it is not all my staff are able to be back in the building at this time. And then
They're what now? I'm sorry. What did you say?
Not all my staff are able to be back in the building at this time. Some of my staff are in compromised classes, that is their own health, and others are the primary caregivers for family members who are compromised. And so neither of those sets can safely come back yet. And then of the staff that I do have that can come in to maintain the safe protocols, we're having to reassign staff from their other duties or normal duties to basically do things like be traffic cops effectively. And we have someone who watches the door to keep count, people coming in and out. It's just being able to cover the shifts. We are looking to try to expand that as fast as we can, but right now we're just making sure that what we have works. Originally, my intent had been to prioritize expanding the service from Maine out to the branches. But again, the turnout from the public wasn't as high as I was expecting. I think people, the general public, still don't feel safe being out in large numbers, which is completely understandable. But because I'm not seeing more demand at Maine, I've shifted the priority from trying to get the branches open to trying to get the computer lab open and extending the services that we have here. If we see a change in the number of patrons that are trying to come in at one time, we'll look at increasing the number of locations. But until I see that uptick, we'll look more at trying to increase the services that we can provide.
Are there any other questions or comments or concerns for Rick? I think you were done, Rick. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. The next item on the agenda is a Friends of the Library report. I'm not aware of anything. Did they meet virtually in early June?
They did. Right now, their plan is to try to get the bookstore back open at the beginning of August. They do have some volunteers who started coming in as soon as we were back open regularly, and they've been sort of getting the bookstore into shape. Despite having signs up asking people not to donate while we were closed, there were still people that dropped off items, and so they've been processing through those. The large number of volunteers that work in the bookstore are retirees, and so they don't know exactly how many of their volunteers will feel safe to come back. But part of what they're doing in the interim is trying to get a hard count of the ones who will commit to coming in. But they have begun taking donations again by appointment. So as the volunteers that are coming and getting the bookstore back into shape, while they're there, they check the phone messages for the Friends voicemail and then call the patrons who have left word that they want to donate, and they're scheduling times for them to drop off materials.
So Rick, is that drop-off bin going to be closed now and you have to make an appointment to come in?
They've been keeping it empty
Okay.
as they come in, but they're not coming in on a regular schedule at this point. They are here most days, but not necessarily all days, and how long they're here varies depending upon which volunteers were able to come in. But they are checking that regularly now, but more they're wanting to schedule times for people who have more than just a few books to donate. I know they had a contact from a patron who said he had like 500 books. And so we've been working out a way for them to be able to safely receive those items, let them sit for a few days to sort of quarantine them, and then to begin to process them.
Thanks.
Any other questions about the Friends? The next item on the agenda is the TPL Foundation. I'm not sure that they have met since we last discussed this.
They have not.
We have not.
Okay.
And who's the board chair of that committee?
Harry Shoemaker is the chair of the foundation.
So we need to,
Shouldn't that be a seated board member, Rick?
There's not a requirement that the officers be seated board members. There is a requirement that at least half the membership of the foundation be seated board members, but any member of the board can be any of the officers.
But I thought the chair had to be a seated board member.
Not as the way the bylaws are written.
Okay.
well, you
The next,
know, I'm sorry, excuse me.
go ahead.
Since the TPL Foundation chairman writes the letter to fundraise, it would seem appropriate to have somebody on the board be chairman.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just,
it makes sense, yes.
yes.
And I was looking at the bylaws and it says a member of the board of trustees shall serve as chair.
Oh, there you go.
Then we'll have that corrected when they meet again.
Who are the board members who are on the foundation board, Rick?
Rick and Jimmy and Pat
Me.
and Virginia.
Okay.
And we probably need another board member since Harry's status changed.
And Pat's not gonna be.
Yeah, ultimately we'll need a replacement for Pat.
Maybe that's something nominating can look into.
That would be a good idea. Yes,
Good idea, Virginia.
I'll add that to the nominating committee's charge. Anything else with the foundation at this point?
What was the total we got off of our letter?
$9,089.85 is the current increase for the foundation.
Was that the profit after the expense of mailing the letters, or was that the total received?
That's the total.
How much does it cost us to send the letter out?
I don't have that number with me right now. Do you remember, Jimmy?
I thought it was something like several thousand.
Yeah, it feels like it was a couple of thousand, but I'm not positive about that.
Who, does the library pay that or the foundation?
The foundation ultimately pays for it. Initially, the library may cover it, and then they
Gotcha.
reimburse. It depends on the timeline.
Anything else for the foundation? All right. The next item on the agenda are committee reports. The executive committee did meet late last week to discuss the proposed cuts by the city and what we think will be the cuts from the county. Do we want to discuss that now or under unfinished business?
Either way, I mean, it's sort of the next big thing. None of the other committees have met, so.
Okay, so then let's Rick, do you want to talk about the letter and share where we're at and what's been done with the proposed budget cuts?
Yeah. Basically, we got the agency funding letter from the city of Tuscaloosa. The budget is due to the city on June 29th, and they've asked all the funded agencies to do a budget working with a 38% reduction from last
Oh,
year's.
Lord.
And when I initially received that letter, you know, we had been expecting a reduction from our funders, but my worst case one that I had my staff working on was 25%. So when we got the 38% number and we initially plugged it in across all our funding sources, that was real severe. In fact, I still don't have a good working budget for that contingency. But I did talk with Stan Acker to see sort of what his feelings were, what he thought the county funding would look like, because I hadn't had anything official. And he couldn't give me an official number, but he did reassure me that it wouldn't be, it should not be that drastic. And so I have worked with a 25% reduction as an estimate from the county, and that should be conservatively low. So ideally, the cut from the county won't be that severe. But using that number and a total guess for Northport of 10% reduction, we have the working budget that I included in the packet there. And we can make that work, but to make that one work, if you've looked over it, it's got some severe aspects to it. It requires us laying off all the part-time employees, not having any sort of seasonal employee, and no student workers, things like that. It also slashes the book budget by about 2/3, and it cuts back basically on anything that we can. To make that happen, we would probably also have to reduce hours at some, if not all, of the locations. The executive committee did ask me to look at some possible options, and we've begun to look at those. They include the possibility of furloughing employees, possibly one day a month, or closing the library on set days, or in all likelihood, we'll end up doing some sort of hybrid of the two. We don't see a huge savings with any one thing. Right now, if we close, basically furloughing all the staff for 1 hour saves the library about $1,187. If we extended that to a full day, that would save us $14,247 a day. If we did that once a month, that ups the savings to $170,975. And if we closed, like say, every Monday for a year, the savings is $740,893. So, and basically in my budget, traditionally the only things that we have complete control over, fluidity, is the book budget and staffing and hours of operation. And if we change hours of operation or staffing by very much, it impacts the other. Because if I don't have enough staff, I can't cover the hours. And if we reduce the hours, I don't need as many staff. So those two directly end up impacting each other. So we won't know the actual numbers till closer to October, but I do need a functioning potential budget. And so what I send to the city will look pretty similar to what's in the packet, but we are going to spend this week looking at all our options and trying to make it less severe.
Well, that was not unexpected, but it's pretty tough.
It wasn't. And if you look in the budget, we have a contingency fund for the library that is set to cover 3 months operating costs, but I expect the budget cuts will run more than 1 year, 2 to 3 years, I would expect. And so I built this budget asking the board to go into reserves for just a third of that amount, or roughly that, so that next year we're not without any options. I don't want to put it all into this year's and then leave us dry next year. I did talk to Harry about possibility that we may have to ask the foundation to help as well if things come back more severe than I'm expecting. But
When you say you're going to cut the book budget by 2/3, how much is that?
in a level funded year, the book budget is, or this last year, 614,000. We're looking at cutting it to 250,000. That's a drop of 414,000.
Oh, that's sizable.
Yes, it's
We're also
terrible.
cutting the tech budget as well by 50%.
Yeah.
Our book budget has not been that low in probably over 15 years, 18, 19 years. And that's substantial.
And
Yeah,
books are getting more expensive, so that's not
Right.
a good.
Exactly.
Well, we'll obviously lose patrons to the university library.
Well, we'll certainly see our stats go down because someone who's a heavy regular user will have read the new materials that we have, and then we're not going to be able to get as many new materials. So there's less for them to check out. There's less for them to make use of. So it will definitely impact, why would you come in if there's nothing new each time you come?
Right. Well, good luck with the budget.
I appreciate that. Like
I mean,
said,
we're also using other things like grants to supplement our budget. I mean, especially the tech budget, we have applied for an Ellis Team grant to sort of, reduce the damage a little. Hopefully we'll get something from that.
yeah, the other places in the budget where we're looking to trim are mostly borrowing against future years. So if we don't, we're cutting, as Kevin said, the proposed budget for computers. And normally we follow a tech plan that rotates out the oldest equipment and each year, so we don't have to ever buy a whole building's worth of new at the same time. And what we'll be doing is sort of stretching the use time out of the oldest equipment. And you can do that for a little while, but eventually that will catch up to you. You're going to have to go back and make it up, or risk losing a lot of computer service at one time. But if this is a short run thing, just a year or two, we can sort of take advantage of that and ride on it. But that's not a straight savings. It is a borrowing against the future. So as he said, we'll be looking at using the LSTA grant money, if we receive that this year, to offset some of that and make up the difference.
Any other thoughts, comments, or ideas for Rick and the team? I guess I'll take the silence as no. Well, let us know how we can help, Rick.
Okay, I will. And
or if anybody comes up with any ideas or anything, please shoot them to Rick.
yeah, certainly if you come across some options for us, we need to know. We are looking for other grants as well, but
So is
I have to
everyone,
build my budget on what I have and can see today, and we can hope for better.
Okay. That covers the executive committee and the budget issues. I don't believe finance, facilities, policies, procedures, or personnel met.
No.
So there's nothing to update there. Terry, did you have anything for personnel?
I did not.
Okay. Did anybody have any unfinished business that we needed
Rick,
to
I'm sorry,
address?
can I go back just a second about the financial statement? I'm still uncertain. Rick, did you say we didn't get the money for May, or it's just not reported on the financials?
It's not reported. It hadn't come in at the time they did the report. But as I understand it, I know we got the city money, and I think we've gotten the county one already. If not, the county money's coming.
Thinking about
Financials
the,
correct?
Yes.
Archived, I know we approved.
You're breaking up, Jimmy.
I think Jimmy may have frozen on us.
You're
Jimmy,
back.
you there?
What were you asking?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I keep going away. Shouldn't the financials be correct? I mean, we're
They
falling
are.
away in our, and as
They
of
were.
right now, like May, we didn't get any funding.
Okay, they sent the numbers they had at the time they got the report ready.
I understand that, but they're not accurate for May, are they?
Yes, they should be.
So we got
It's all
no funding
zeros.
in May.
I'll double check that and make sure.
I know we approved it, but I don't know. If we got the money in May, the financials ought to reflect that we got the money, in my opinion.
Virginia, did you have something?
well, it's probably more of new business, but since we're talking governments, has anybody notified Northport we need a new representative?
Yes, Mike notified them.
Okay. Hopefully they'll have some influence. Mike tried hard.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, any other unfinished business before we move on to new business? Yeah, I would just like to echo what Jimmy's comments there. I do think we need correct financial statements for May before they're archived.
Okay.
And if they are truly zeros, I think we probably all need to be aware of that.
Is there a
Next,
possibility that, is there a possibility the money came in June and that's why it's not reflected in May?
Typically, it comes in its month, so
Okay,
the mail certainly was erratic for the 2 months we were closed, but we deliberately went and looked for the checks when they were expected, and they came when we needed them. So I'm not sure why it didn't show recorded, but I will find out whichever way and let y'all know.
thank you. New business, we need to form a nominating committee. We need a new treasurer. I think we need to look at the chairman of the TPL Foundation. And also I intend to let the county know that we're moving, and so I'll be rotating off as well, and will need to be replaced. Jimmy, would you have any objections to chairing the nominating committee?
No, I'll do that.
And then I would like to ask Olympia and Mark Nelson to serve with you. And I know last time we did the appointments for 2 years, but given the turnover and the flux, it might make sense to kind of install the new officers as soon as possible and then run them through the rest of this year and next year. But I'll just put that on the table and let the board decide what's best there.
Rick, I think according to the bylaws, you serve a one-year term.
I think that's correct. And last time, I think there was some discussion that you really are just kind of getting your feet on the ground before you rotate out. So we were trying to do 2-year terms, and then I might be wrong, but what the vice chair going to rotate up, and then we'll do that on 2-year cycles. But yes, the bylaws do say 1 year.
also in the slate presented in September,
I think we're at a point where we need to move a little quicker with my departure and the lack of a treasurer in these crucial times.
Yeah, you are correct. Normally, the committee would be formed in October with the slate in September, but as Rick referenced, we need to fill the treasurer position as soon as we can and take care of the other officers who help to keep things flowing smoothly.
And Rick, for the nominating committee's guidance, should those who are rotating off in 2020 indicate whether or not they want? I know Pat has already said no. Should they let us know? Could they let us know now whether or not they'd be interested in re-upping for another term?
Yeah, I do think it's in the board's best interest to have the discussion with potential nominees about their desire to continue to serve. I would hate to appoint somebody and have them roll off at the end of the year or 9 months, whenever the terms are up. I think Rick has a list of the individuals who terms are up towards the end of this year or early next year.
Yeah, Vanessa's term rolls over in November. Jimmy's rolls over in the 9th month, so September.
And mine too, technically December.
December for Olympia.
Well, it's January 1, but you know, like you say, that's December 30th.
Yeah.
And I would prefer to rotate off.
Olympia. We may not let you rotate off.
You do serve till replaced, so. keep you forever. Okay, so Olympia has indicated she would prefer to roll off. What about you, Jimmy? Will you
Yeah, I'd
re-up?
prefer to roll off too.
However, will
I
you
mean, if
re-up?
everybody else is bailing, you know, why not, right? No, it just depends on what the city wants to do, you know?
Yeah, I
Kind of
understand
up to
that.
them, so,
But if they're willing, are you willing to re-up?
yes.
Okay, thank you. And Vanessa?
I would like to roll off.
Okay. All right.
Well, before we leave, is there an update on the Saban Center project? Is it on hold?
No, it's greenlit. It's moving forward. Ellis Architects have a team that's meeting with us pretty regularly. There's a sort of standing Thursday morning meeting, which when everybody's available happens. I guess it.
Well, at what point do we have a presentation of the project that we vote on?
That I don't know. They haven't hired the specialized consultants yet. That's one of the priorities in the near future. And then whoever they hire will need to get up to speed. So I don't have a timeline on that, but the team from Ellis has been to the library a couple of times while we've been closed, getting their statistics and the layout measured and things like that. Terry is on the sort of weekly meeting with that, representing the board. And then I have three staff members who with them as well.
I'm very impressed with the Ellis team. I feel like they've been very thorough in doing their research. They presented on the last call a couple of weeks ago, they presented some photos of different libraries, so that the staff could talk about what they liked, what they didn't like, how other libraries use their spaces, and also kind of gave a list of potential consultants. Rick, I know, gave some feedback on one of those that he knew, but also talked about, you know, some strengths of the different groups. So I feel like they've been very thorough and very.
Well, that's great.
I've been very impressed with them on the calls that I've been on.
That's good.
Is there any other new business for the group?
Who's on the nominating committee again, Rick? It's me, Olympia, and who?
Mark Nelson.
Mark Nelson, right. Okay, great. Yeah.
Olympia's on the phone. Mark is not, so it's gonna. I'll try and get a hold of him and let him know before you contact him.
It'll be news to him.
Yes.
Normally the board does not meet in July. Are we planning to meet next month?
Well, if nominating's gotta hurry up, we probably need to. Are you expecting a slate in July, Rick? When are you moving?
About
Or
a
when
week
do you
ago.
want? When do you want to be off the board? Is what I guess I'm asking.
I have moved. But I will serve as best I can until replaced. So having said that, I think as quickly as we can get a new board or a slate of officers, the better.
So ideally then we do want to look at a July meeting.
Okay.
So if we do meet in July, that will be the Monday, July 20th.
Yes.
And I guess Jimmy, just let me know if you think it will take longer than that, and then we can determine whether or not we should hold a meeting in July or not. Probably with all that's going on, I would lean towards we need to meet.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get to work on it.
Appreciate it. I thank you. Thank you. Is there anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Virginia, seconded by Olympia. All in favor?
No, that was,
Uh,
I think Blanche seconded.
Vince,
Oh, it
No,
wasn't me.
Vanessa.
That's, I will.
Vanessa,
It was
Vanessa, I'm
Vanessa.
sorry.
Okay, I knew it wasn't me.
Vanessa.
Okay.
The two boxes are close together.
Gotcha. Trying to get the minutes correct.
So seconded by Vanessa. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you all. Thank you guys. Thank you, Rick. I know there's a lot of difficulties and uncertainty and change and turnover coming. Just let us know how we can help. And if any of you have any ideas that may be helpful, please pass those along. Otherwise, we'll sign off today and plan on meeting July 20th. And I appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.